This is Ravens Flock Talk Podcast, coming to you every week with their thoughts and opinions on each and every Ravens game. Tune in weekly and join the flock.
This is Ravens Flock Talk. I am your host, Brandon, and my dad joins me as my other host. Week 12, Monday Night Football, the clash between the brothers, and the Ravens pulled it out in a very important win. We say this kind of every week, a must win, but this really was, considering the implications of this game with the playoff seeding, the fact that Pittsburgh lost, and we fought, and we had a solid Ravens win.
Agree. You took the words right out of my mouth. Very important win for us in the AFC and in our division. So glad to see the win. It's a typical Ravens win, though. You're always on the edge of your seat, in my opinion. It went back and forth, and I'm just happy to have the win, Brandon.
Yeah. I mean, I heard from two people today. It's like the Ravens had me scared in the beginning. You know, that whole first quarter, literally, we barely had the ball. And the Chargers came out firing. But what I liked most about this win was the fact that, yes, we started out sluggish and slow, but they didn't panic and veer away from the run game as we have been accustomed to in years prior and games prior. They stuck with the run and realized, a touchdown, and we're back in it. And I had told you during the game with this Chargers team, they're kind of like us in a way where if you punch them back, sometimes they can fall.
They can
We've
fold.
seen the Ravens do that a lot. And the Chargers are notorious for doing that, and I just knew that tremendous start was all kind of fugazi in a way if we were able to get a drive together and score, and that's what happened.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. The other way is, you're away, playing an away game, and you're coming out sluggish like that. 10-0. They had the ball, like you said, for all the first quarter practically. Had Lamar off the field, had Henry off the field.
Yep.
But to your point, we kept to the game plan. Todd didn't panic. Lamar usually never panics. It's just the play calling that we're always suspect of in that kind of a situation. So glad to see that. Agree with you on that one.
Yeah, so, like you said earlier, this was a solid Ravens win in terms of, if I were to tell you, okay, the Ravens were a run-first organization. We're going to establish the run. It's going to open up more things. You would say, okay, that's your typical Ravens, a solid victory. Whenever Lamar has to drop back and throw it 28, 30-plus times, that's just not our style of play, and I don't like that style of play. And looking at the box score, with Henry, 24 carries, you kept pounding at it, getting 5 yards here, 7 yards, 10-plus yards, and that breaks open that Justice Hill run, right? If you just stay with it and consistent, and that is what lacked last week against Pittsburgh, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree, and we had a variety of ways that we were scoring, a variety of ways we were having on offense, and everybody kind of touched the ball. That's what you want. When you have all these weapons like we do in the receiving core, everybody kind of got a touch. The tight ends got involved. Wide receivers got it. Zay had a great game as usual. We got Andrews more involved as a tight end. He had that fantastic hip catch to keep a drive going, if I remember.
Yeah, that resulted in our first touchdown.
Yeah. So that's what I liked, is spreading the ball around and sticking to the ground game, as well as the airing it out.
Yeah, it's funny in the offseason, the league is a passing league, as they say, but you look at all the contenders who sought a running back in free agency. Minnesota gets Aaron Jones. Josh Jacobs goes to the Packers. Mm-hmm. Philly gets Saquon, who, I love Derrick Henry, but Saquon looks like he's the best running back in the league, right?
Yeah.
We get Derrick Henry. So the value of having a run game and alleviating that pressure off your quarterback is what you want, and it's how you win playoff games. Long drives, keeping their quarterback off the field. And that's what they did to us in the first quarter. And the biggest thing to me was, ironically, and it worked in our favor, but ironically, J.K. getting hurt. You know, how ironic is it he's having a tremendous year and he faces us for his revenge game, right? His get back game, and he gets injured. I mean, I haven't watched a lot of the Chargers this year, but think about, I mean, the whole offense kind of revolved around him. He was involved in the passing game and the run game, obviously. And when he went down, it just changed everything.
Yeah, you can see the whole game plan changed for them when he went down. So
he only had 6 carries.
Yeah.
You know?
And never forget, with the running backs like Saquon and his situation in Philly now, you know, there's very few teams like the Ravens that have a quarterback like Lamar that has that threat on top of having 2 premier running backs. So that's what always makes me feel comfortable with the Ravens in terms of the running game, because you have the 3-headed monster with Lamar.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, when J.K. went down, I mean, it's easy to say after the fact, but I think the odds of us winning went up tremendously.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally
he looked explosive, he was involved, he was engaged, and you're like, oh my gosh, don't let J.K. beat us. I mean, that would be like a knife in the heart as a Ravens fan. And you know, they already are kind of lacking on weapons outside of Dobbins and McConkey. Who scares you on this offense? You know, their running game sets up everything and actually worked in favor to the defense when I was thinking leading into this game, because they don't throw it a lot. It's not like they have a Jamar Chase, and with our secondary, you're panicking. So we're good against the run too. So it kind of worked well in our favor on a defensive scheme, you know, situation, looking at it from
And
that
watching
perspective.
Herbert the last couple of games that they televised, he's pretty dangerous. So I was a little nervous because he's a very accurate passer. Like you said, he doesn't pass a lot.
And he's able to move.
So he scored their first touchdown, and then they didn't score until the end of the fourth quarter in the garbage fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So he's the one that worried me the most on the team. Right.
Plus, he's accurate. He's got a big arm.
Yeah.
You know, he did get sacked 4 times, and we got pressure on him a lot. I really liked what Zach Orr did with like the corner blitzes. Wiggins could have had one. He overshot him when Herbert stepped up. Herbert didn't even notice. If you listen to Troy Aikman, he didn't even know. I mean, that was a free shot for Wiggins to just tee off on him.
Yeah.
Stevens got a sack off the edge, and Marlon was close at one point too. So that added a different perspective for Herbert, seeing those fast guys come off the edge.
And let's not forget, I think that scheme was because Roquan was out, and they said they're going to have to give help to the linebacker core. So some of those edge rushing blitzes were really, really effective in this game. Maybe that is something to look for Todd to go forward with, even with Roquan back in the lineup, because that was very effective. Maybe it was just the Chargers, you know, and how they scheme up things. But, I like to see that defense really put some pressure on Herbert, which was very needed with Roquan out. So it really helped the Ravens in the long run.
Yeah, it did. And, you know, this was probably arguably his best game, I would say, for Malik Harrison. Ravens fans, we've been tough on him. It's been tough for me to really get a synopsis of this guy, an evaluation of this guy, because you know, he was behind Queen and Roquan. He got the most snaps before Roquan got here, because it was just him and Queen. Roquan gets here, and now he's like your third rotational piece. So with Roquan being out this game, you know,
looks like it lit a fire under him.
Yeah, I mean, 13 tackles, 7 solo tackles. He was all over the place. And that's what you like to see, because especially with Trenton Simpson, this is really his like rookie year, getting majority of the snaps. He needs some time to develop, it seems like. He's just not quite there, I guess. And he doesn't really jump out at the screen too often during the game. But Malik Harrison, I mean, that's what I like to see. You know, with Queen now off this team, you need someone to step up in that role alongside Roquan.
Yeah, and in terms of the secondary, I'd like to talk about that a little bit. It's kind of mixed emotions for me with the secondary this game. I usually am saying it's like Swiss cheese, and they are too far off in their schemes. But this time they were playing, you know, pretty up on the receivers, and we just got penalties. We got so many penalties from them. But I like the fact that they're playing tight coverage instead of 5 and 6 yards where you don't even see them into the frame sometimes on the television. So mixed emotions with that. Glad to see it. But they still have to improve on the secondary, and we also have to improve on our penalties, the number of penalties. It's just ridiculous.
I will disagree with you to one point on the penalties in terms of the secondary. Is if you take out that last drive, really, are we really talking about the penalties in the secondary? Because they had it seemed like 3 in a row, right?
Yeah.
Marlon got one. Amor Davis got a penalty on that drive, and someone else, I believe. But
So I was referring to all penalties, not just the secondary, all of them. But and think about the last drive. If that was a closer game on the last drive, those pass interferences, two in a row, one was picked up from Brandon Stevens.
Yeah. That wasn't on the last drive, though. But
in the
that
end
last
of the
drive in particular.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
There was some questionable calls. I didn't like the 2 called on Marlon. I didn't like at all.
Yeah.
One on the sideline. I feel like they were both touching each other.
Yep.
And the other one, I just didn't see it at all. I mean, there was right out of the gate with the Ricard.
With a
I
leg
have
whip.
never heard, I've been watching football for 20 plus years. I have never heard of that call ever. What they call it, a leg sweep?
A leg whip.
A leg whip? I have never heard that. I've heard of tripping. I've never heard that call. And one of the accounts I follow, the big Ravens accounts I follow, commenting on a post saying he never heard that call either.
Not only that,
I wasn't the only one, obviously.
But not only that, when they replayed it and then went in slow motion, he wasn't even near him when his leg went up. It was just he was falling over and his leg,
I know, it
whipped
just
up.
is the natural reaction of his body.
And that was, I think, a third down. That was a critical play, I believe. I can't remember the details.
What happened is we completed it to Nelson Aguilar. This one catch of the game, and that got called back.
That's what it was.
We got that called back, and then the Henry touchdown was called back.
Yeah.
Not being up on the line. And I talked to you during the game. I'm like, on a Sunday, right? Because we didn't play on Sunday. You're watching all these games. You just don't see that call.
Look, I remember going back to the opening game with Kansas City. It was called 3 times on the first drive. And then after that, I think we said that the last podcast. We haven't seen that. Watching football all Sunday and Mondays and Thursdays, you don't see that call very often. And once again, they call it on a critical. It was a touchdown, and
we had to score twice just to get 7 points.
Yeah, and again, that's the Lamar factor when you have Henry in the backfield. You have to account for him, and luckily, Lamar saved the day again and got that touchdown after it was called back. So, that's the good news for the Ravens.
He started out inaccurate, and you're like, oh no, with the slow start too. I remember there was a pass to Zay on the third down near the sideline that he overshot. But then, man, I feel like this best throw of the night. People are going to talk about the Bateman catch, and that was a tremendous catch. And it's funny because he kind of dropped a similar catch earlier, right, where it was kind of a bang play, and could he have caught it? Should he have caught it? I don't know. And then he redeems himself on a pass interference too. But when he rolled out Lamar and threw that on a dime to Zay, rolling out to his right, just near the sideline, perfect, bread and basket, raindrop, teardrop throw that he had to do. And that was on a third down too. So I think that was his best throw of the night.
And I will add on, the best third throw was to Andrews in the end zone, because that was so critical to get that touchdown, and that was a beautiful catch by Andrews. I'm glad to see him. That used to be our bread and butter, with Andrews in the red zone and in the end zone, making those catches, and he kind of disappeared. But now it's good to see him getting more involved with the offense, especially in the red zone.
Yeah, like Mark Andrews, I think he was getting questions early in the year, and he was just not worried about his production and involvement in the offense. And games like this is I guess, why he came out and said that, and we just have to realize too, when he was our main guy, Hollywood really wasn't a number one receiver, we were never big proponents of him, even when the fans liked him at the time. But when you have Zay Flowers and now Bateman, this is his best year coming into stride, and Derrick Henry, I guess naturally there is going to be some fallback in his production because he's not just the only option, which is the whole point of why we wanted to add these pieces,
Yeah.
So
hey, the game was wild because look at that fourth down play on the 16-yard line. That was gutsy. I mean, I don't know if it was desperation on Harbaugh's just trying to beat his brother or what, but
and
that was a hell of a
still,
call.
even though we converted, you were still like, I don't really like that call,
I don't.
correct?
Because you're on the 16-yard line and you're behind.
At that point, it was 10-7.
10-7.
I believe,
You blow that, and now they have an easy 3 field goal and you probably a touchdown, and now you just flipped all the momentum too.
I know it could have been 17-7. Now, why do you think they went for it? What's your estimation? We'll never know the right answer.
I really don't know, but I'll guess that I think John felt we had the momentum at that point, and we were having a good running game against them. They're not known for a good run defense, and he just took a gamble, and it paid off big time.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously could have been the option. I was thinking about it too, but before hopping on the podcast, I was thinking like, why did they do that? And it was like under 2 minutes just before halftime. Well, they get the ball out of half.
Yeah.
If you don't convert and give up a touchdown, 17-7, you get the ball out of half, you can make it 17-14, right? Or I just think that they just felt like, we should have got the first down on the previous play. We were right there. Mm-hmm. And what's the point of having a Henry and all these weapons if you can't get that 1 yard? So I like it. Considering the fact that Pittsburgh lost on Thursday, this was a game that you needed to win. And whenever they lose, and they're first in our division currently, this is a game you got to go all out and not play conservative. And teams that take risks, it pays off sometimes.
Yeah, but
so
look,
I didn't mind that at all.
I'll follow on and say I agree. However, when you have a Henry and a weapon like that, yes. But my big thing was
the field position.
You're on a 16.
I get it, but it's like,
all right, well.
Do you want to win the game? I felt like because of the fact that we barely had the ball in the first quarter.
Yeah, that's another thing.
I just feel like they
Time
were
of
like,
possession.
we gotta do something. And there's moments in games, and that was the moment. That was the moment where I felt like the Ravens showed Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, we're going after this.
Okay.
I mean, they went for it on fourth down 3 times, 3 for 3.
Well, let's talking about going for it. Let's talk about the 2-point conversion that failed. Now, and I want your opinion, how you feel, whether they should have kicked a field goal and tied the game, or go up by a point,
up by 8.
Yeah, by a touch, more than a touchdown, or do a 2-point conversion. What do you think?
Yeah, we were both on the same page of kicking the field goal. I understand, okay, if you convert the 2-point conversion, right, you're up by 2 scores. However, I think in our perspective, we were saying, okay, yeah, they can score, right? But a 2-point conversion is no gimme with a limited field. Think about how many games we lost going for 2-point conversions with John that 1 year being hyper-aggressive. 2-point conversion is not guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So I would have just opted to kick the field goal, go up by 8, and dare them to not only score but convert the 2-point conversion.
That or a field goal if they elected to just kick a field goal. So, yeah.
I'm saying you kick the field goal, you're up by 8 points.
I got you.
So to me, it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I felt like you would have been putting the pressure on them just by kicking the extra point because they know they have to not only score in, but they get the 2-point conversion was not guaranteed.
And to me, what bailed out that call by Todd was Justice Hill's run.
Yeah.
I mean, it really bailed him out where now you can breathe, because I
get it. I mean, we were staying consistent with the aggressiveness throughout the game. Mm-hmm. I just thought at that moment it was just unnecessary.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up because you said you want to be aggressive, in a game like this, and how aggressive is too much.
But going up by 7 or 8 is like two different things because it changes the whole play calling. Because once you score, you're like, okay, we'll just kick the extra point. No, you got to come up with a play for the 2-point conversion on top of that.
Yeah.
Had they just kicked the field goal to go up by 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's-
you know,
I agree.
I'm glad it didn't bite us.
Me
I was
too.
kind of
Me
anticipating.
too.
I mean, be honest. Were you anticipating that to bite us? Were you anticipating them to go down and score and just and
thought-
tie this game up?
Yeah, I really did.
Yeah.
Knowing the Ravens and their fourth,
did too.
in their fourth quarter collapses, you
Yeah.
know, in the past. Yeah, I was very concerned, and I was very elated to see Justice break that
Yeah.
that run.
That was the
That was
nail in the coffin.
that was it, right?
That was a nail in the coffin. But yeah, you know, glad to see Tucker making kicks. Everything was down the center. That's really all I have to say on this game. This was a solid win, execution on all cylinders, offense and defense, and no turnovers, which is a big thing, you know, especially after last week with Pittsburgh. So they buttoned it up against a very good team that's going to be in the playoffs, and that's a solid win that you can hang your hat on.
Yeah, and what I pay attention to at this time in the season in games also is as far as I know or have seen, no major injuries.
Yeah.
Right, and then it looks like Roquan's injury, his hamstring, is not severe because he almost could play. He was just questionable, and I'm glad they kept him out because you don't want him to get and re-aggravate that injury more than it already is.
Speaking on that, I'm surprised that Hamilton hasn't missed a game with all his
I know.
you know.
He had that shoulder injury, and they didn't even talk about it. This guy is tough.
Yeah.
This guy, I love this guy, right? He has really come into his own. He's been a leader. They gave him the ear plug thing to help call with the defense.
You know, when
headset,
when you got Roquan out, you definitely can't afford Kyle out too. So
Yeah.
it's either one or the other.
And like I mentioned last week, they're the two top tackles.
Tacklers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so next week, man, a huge game. The first time that Jalen Hurts will be facing Lamar. I'm actually glad this is a home game. I feel more confident that it's a home game. Not to say that we're like the Ravens in the past or we just never lose at home, because obviously we've lost some games at home, not just this year, but in recent years. But that eases me a little bit, and I'll be nervous if Roquan doesn't play with Saquon.
I was
It
just
really
going to
is,
say that.
but
That's going to be the key. If
Yeah.
he's out there on the field, then we have half a chance with Saquon. He's just out of his mind right now. So
Yeah.
if there's any team that can stop him, it would be the Ravens and Pittsburgh with their defense. So I'm hoping that the Ravens...
maybe Minnesota too. Minnesota's defense is killing it this year too, but from an AFC perspective,
I was talking AFC.
yeah.
So... yeah, I'm looking forward to that game.
And they're a team that, like I said, keep banging and knocking the door, running it. They consistently will do that with Saquon, and then boom. I mean, just that primetime game, right out of halftime, he takes us 70 yards.
I know.
They stay consistent with the
Yeah.
run game.
So it's going to be Henry against him in this game.
The
and
two top running backs, ironically, that were both free agents.
Yeah, that we were looking at and could have gotten either one.
Yeah. I mean, we would have had to pay a
Saquon.
more hefty penny for Saquon, but obviously both players have fit perfectly with their new teams. And schemes.
I
for
do
sure.
like our choice with Henry because we needed somebody that could pound and ground, especially in the fourth quarter and at the end of the season when it's going to count in the playoffs if we get there.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm happy. It's going to be interesting, and
It's going to be, I think, a similar game to the Chargers, but the one difference is their defense is much better. Their defensive line is, with Carter, they have a defensive line, probably the best in the league. So our O-line, you're talking about don't hold, giving Lamar time. Those are going to be the keys. But if you stop the run like we did with the Chargers, granted, the J.K. injury helped us. What the difference is the fact that they got A.J. Brown on the outside and Devontae Smith. They got two weapons.
yeah.
Just like, it kind of reminds me of Cincinnati. They have two very good receivers too.
Yeah.
So Philly can beat you through
Multiple-
the air as
multiple
well.
ways, yeah.
And And Jalen Hurts is mobile. He can take it and run too. So, I mean, they can beat you a variety of ways.
Which means we're going to have a complete game. You
Yeah.
know, so, and just think about it. If we do pull out a win and then we get a bye, I mean, that's one way to go into the back half of the season.
Yeah.
You know?
And granted, Pittsburgh's going to have a tough game playing Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So you're talking about this is a week that could change everything. And really dictate things going forward, even though we both, us and Pittsburgh, have some tough games ahead. But
Yeah, we gotta stay up with them though in our division. So this is so critical. We say that every week, but
This
when you're
is
looking,
definitely gonna
but
be
when you're
America's
looking at
game of the week,
Yeah,
for
when
sure.
you're looking at the standings right now, this is going to be really dictate how the Ravens what position we're going to be in after our bye.
I feel good because now we are ahead of the Chargers. If
Stay
we end up
equal.
with the same record.
Yeah.
But that Steelers loss on Thursday really made things interesting. It really did. And you know, for some reason, Cleveland is good on Thursday night, and they just played to win and really did us a favor right there.
You know, when it comes to Pittsburgh, I'll end with this comment that when you're watching their games, nothing flies out at you like they're dominating anything. Those games they won,
But
so
lose, they're consistent.
I know
You can't say
that's
that with the Ravens.
Yeah,
There's some games we could just completely fall apart and not play our game.
I
But
know.
if Pittsburgh loses, they still played to their game plan,
Exactly.
which is so weird.
and that goes back to multiple podcasts where we talk about, is it the players or is it the coaching?
Yeah.
Right. So you just never know. And when I say complete game, I mean coaching too. So,
I think too
that's
with
my
Tomlin,
thoughts.
he's one of those coaches that the players buy into
Yeah.
and they go there for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's the reason. You know, players like Deshaun Elliott that used to be the safety for us. He's your typical Steelers Ravens type of player. Hard, gritty, hits hard. He wants to play for a guy
Pittsburgh
like
will
Tomlin.
refuse to get off that defense. They're a defensive team. They'll never change, just like they hold on to players so long, like Ben, way longer than he should have. So that organization is great, but they are stuck in their ways. And I'm just glad that the Ravens have gone more progressive and aggressive.
It's worked for them, but they
How
haven't
long?
won a playoff game since 2016, I believe. So it's kind of worked, but like not worked for them. But next week we will know the outcome because they play at 1:00 against Cincinnati. Because our game is at 4:25, and that's in Cincinnati, by the way, too. So Cincinnati is slightly favored, even though they're 4-7. So we'll know the outcome of that, and going into this game, whether what we need to do. We need to win either way, but it's going to definitely.
Could be a motivational.
It's going to up the stakes.
Yes, it
if
could be
they-
motivation
if they,
for
if
us.
they lose for sure.
Yeah.
But solid win. Not much else to say. I'm very excited for this Philly game. This is going to be a lot of people are going to be tuning into this for sure. This is a powerhouse, two powerhouse teams going at each other, and very good on both sides of the ball. So tune in next week, and let's hope that Lamar conquers Jalen Hurts in their first meet-off.